Ladies and gentlemen, it is 7:30, and we welcome you to the American Fork City Council meeting this September 25th, 2018. We appreciate you being here. Our agenda has been posted on the state website and in various places throughout the city as required by state law. We should note that one council member will be participating via electronic means. That is Council Member Christy Jansen. So she is. Let's do a mic check with you, Council Member. You there?
I'm here.
Okay. So we have a full council. We have a full council and can conduct the business of the city. We will follow the agenda as outlined. If you would please stand with me, and we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. After which we'll have a prayer by Council Member Carroll.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful today that we couldn't meet here together. We're grateful that we are able to live in this country and enjoy the freedoms that we enjoy. Please bless us that we will proceed with civility, that we will be open and honest. Please help us to have thy guiding spirit and wisdom. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. I will now conduct the roll call. Councilmember Taylor. Here. Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Barnes.
Here.
Councilmember Shelton.
Here.
Councilmember Christy Jansen.
Here.
Okay. It is now that point in our agenda where we would like to hear from you with a 20-minute public comment period. If you would like to address the council, the mayor, senior staff in any way, we'd invite you to come forward at this time and please state your name, and we would love to hear from you. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period, and we will move on to our city administrator report.
Thank you, Mayor. I've just got a couple of things to report. As you may have seen, the bubble is up at the fitness center, so now the pool is enclosed. The pool's been closed for several days. It still will be closed for a couple more days while they finish getting all the interior parts of that completed. But just want to thank our staff that put that up in record time. They were very organized this year and did a great job, and so many people came to help out, and just want to thank them for their good hard work on that. Our fire department, we have our crews back from the Pole Mountain Fire. They were deployed for a short time down on that fire, and sure glad to have them back, and everyone is safe, and they provided a great service to the communities in the southern part of Utah County, and just we really appreciate our firemen and what they do, and just glad that they're home safe, and thank them for their good work. The fire department will be having an emergency preparation safety week, October 8th through the 12th, and they will have an open house on October 11th from 6 to 9 at the fire station, and they will be giving out the car seats, the carbon monoxide detectors. Thank you. And so come on over. They're going to have a coloring contest. That's what I was really actually trying to find the words for, is because right along my line. But coloring contest, some different things. So come over to that. We will be handing out some family emergency preparedness guides, and it's a quick booklet that will give you ideas on how to get your family more prepared and help you organize yourself for an emergency if that were to happen. And so we will be distributing those there as well. I did want to mention that our water use for the year has been really high. This has been a tough water year for the entire state. And it was really dry in the mountains, as we know, and that's what really caused those fires to take off like they did. But every gallon of water we save today is water that we can use next year, because we are using stored water, meaning the water we're using today is coming out of a reservoir or out of a well. If we don't use that water today, then that will be there for us next year. So if we could all just be aware of how much water we're using and start to dial that back, we will need it next year. And so it's just a word of caution there. We have had our streets crew out. We've done several projects throughout the city. So many of our residents are driving on new asphalt, which is wonderful because it's nice and smooth, and we need to watch our speeds now that it's all smooth and straight. But we've had several residents comment about how thankful and grateful they are that the city is fixing the roads in front of their homes and in their neighborhoods. So thanks to the mayor and council for that. That's all I have.
Thank you for that report. Councilmember Taylor.
I have nothing to report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Carroll.
This past week, I was able to attend a ribbon cutting for a new business in our community, in our city. It's Pure. The name of this company is Pure, and they are a multi-level marketing company, although they would like to call themselves a internet-based company, I think is what the term they use. But it seemed like a really fantastic company, and they were based out of Texas, and this is one of the few other offices they had here, and they chose to put it here. So that was really neat. The other thing I wanted to report was that I have been attending American Fork City's Police Citizen Academy, and that's been really great and very educational. And last night they did taser the city administrator from Cedar Hills. So I have a video of that if you wanted to watch that. And then they had my husband Diego interrogate the suspect, and he was pretty good. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you for that report. That's the last thing you want is a husband that knows how to interrogate. Don't teach him too well, Chief. Councilmember Barnes.
I'm going to pass tonight. Nothing to report.
Okay. Councilmember Shelton.
Thanks, Mayor. This last week's been real busy. I attended a beautification committee meeting. We had it down at Easton Park, and it's the first time I've really just sat in that park and was able to observe that new facility. It's a beautiful new park. The committee was really impressed with how it came together. The comment was the committee meets at different parks throughout the summer, and that was the most heavily used park on a consistent basis during the time that we were meeting there, and a lot of young families going out there and utilizing it, most likely because they don't have yards around the density that we're looking at. But I think it's important to remember that green space as we're considering density, and that was one thing the committee asked me to bring up as I kind of reported to them that we're re-looking at the development code with the TOD, and encourage them to come to the public meeting and give input. And they wanted to make sure just to express their concern to make sure we look for those green space opportunities with high density housing, that people have that ability to go out and still enjoy a park and some grass to run around in and things of that nature. But they're excited. They're starting their Scarecrow Festival on Main Street. So I think they were trying to get in touch with Camden to get the publicity on that going. So watch for that. It'll be the Monday prior to Halloween that they'll be having the scarecrows on Main Street. So if you have a business or any individual wants to participate, you're welcome to do that. And hopefully here soon you can go to the city website to get some more information on that. Also had the opportunity to attend a dispatch meeting and be able to get a report from that. They said that their call volume increased 75% with the pole fire that took place, and they're already down 4 dispatchers just because of the economy and trying to backfill positions and the competitive environment it is. So it was very hard, and a lot of people took a lot of overtime positions, and I think they handled it very, very well with the call volume that went in. They then entered into a little bit of a lull where that call volume backed off, but then it picked up again as soon as the people were allowed back into their homes, just as a lot of people have questions and they're dialing into dispatch to try to get that. So one thing for us to look at in our emergency response is how we can communicate to residents without having them to overload dispatch, to keep those more of an emergency channel, something for us to kind of reflect upon as we saw our neighbors. But those neighboring agencies are very appreciative to all the support from the neighboring communities and being a part of helping them out during that difficult time. So one other thing that we talked about was the tower situation. It's kind of a comical joke to me now. That tower that we have for fire continues to get hit by lightning on a regular basis. And so we just can't get it repaired fast enough. I know that working with Chief Brims and Michael, the director, they're looking to be able to not get a second tower. What they've decided is that that tower's pretty much fried, and they'll gut the guts out and put a new microwave radio system in that. But they're going to move everything to fiber. So that'll be the first call that will go through, will be through fiber. So our building already has fiber, but as we look at other buildings that we may take over or that we may build, we'll want to make sure that's there. That's a more reliable source, and the backup would be the microwave. UCA, which is a state agency, is doing a review of where towers are located in the valley, and the state may pay for that second tower. So the district thought it would be better to just gut the one we have and go over to the fiber optic. So we're hopeful that'll happen, knock on wood, in spring. Saratoga Springs Fire Chief is heading that up. He's from Las Vegas, and they switched over to that fiber, and so he's been able to get a lot of good feedback from that system that exists. So that was everything on the dispatch to report on. They are changing how they're doing their billing. They were within like 3% on their billings because it's an estimate, and they think they can dial that in even better. So they're going to change to a true quarter on their billings. Right now they're off on the quarter, so just as staff can look for that. There'll be one bill that might be a little higher or lower as they're adjusting that, but that's one thing they went to. Brought up the concern Councilman Barnes had about the weighted voting, and appreciate Tim's comments back. I never picked it up in the bylaws, but I guess if any member of the district calls for a weighted vote, then it has to go a weighted vote versus a 1-to-1 vote. In the history of the district, as I asked, no one's ever done that, but I guess kind of nice to know it's in our back pocket, I guess, if we ever wanted to use it, as we're probably, last report I looked at, I think we just passed Utah County as the second largest member of that uses the 911. First would be Lehigh. The next meeting I went to was the called the dump meeting, North Point Solid Waste meeting, and interesting to note, one of our neighboring towns might be thinking about leaving the district. That have a significant impact. Lehigh's looking at a technology where they will open up a plant that will package garbage into a fuel cell, and they will then sell that fuel cell. It's a technology been used over in Germany. They've actually sent employees over to Germany to look at it. There's a lot of concern if that actually will work or not. One thing that we've looked at as a district is compared our tipping fees to those of surrounding communities and in the nation, and we enjoy probably the lowest tipping fees of anybody else. They recently had a national conference in Boston. If you're in Boston, the transfer station where you end up dumping your garbage is in Ohio. So think about the transportation costs associated with that. So we're very fortunate to have Bayview just down the road that we're able to dump at a more economical cost. So we'll be looking at that, and if Lehigh decides to leave, they have to notify the district by the December 31st of this year. And that goes for any other municipality, and then it's set for 5 more years that no one can leave in that time frame. They also talked about I apologize, a long report here, Mayor. Importance of trying to level out the expenses. So I'm part of an operation committee that we're going to review and ask to come to the council and perhaps look at our contract with Republic and see if we can switch the garbage day. What ends up happening is Republic does all of the south end of the valley and overloads that facility to where they're working overtime on Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's the whole north. And so it's very hard staffing wise when you have they're trying to level out the workload throughout the week. And so that's one thing as a district we're going to be looking at to see if it will help us save a little bit on some staffing costs and overtime and be able to help out. Also, the busiest day, if anyone goes to dump garbage off, you'll see the line that goes all the way back. So a Saturday pickup for a city probably doesn't make a lot of sense because that facility is the busiest for residents. So we're trying to operationally look how to do that. So those will be things forthcoming. So sorry for the long report, Mayor, but that's all that I've got. So
Thank you very much. Council Member Chris Jansen. The mayor's report, I just was thinking as David Bunker, our city administrator, was talking about our fire and our bubble. And I don't know, I know that there's few department heads here, but I just feel like going on public record. I think one of the real joys of being the mayor is you get a real different bird's eye view of staff. And we have great staff in this city that will risk life and limb, that will stay late hours if they just get the job done. And I'm talking everybody from Public Works, our planning department, to our emergency personnel, our administrative staff. I'm just thoroughly impressed with their manner. I was copied on an email chain from a realtor that had petitioned the Public Works Department for basically some infrastructure information on a parcel of land. And it was, if I could just could explain, it was like if you ever watch your kids do something good and without them knowing it. Well, I just saw this incredible email chain that probably was about a month of communication, one person to the next, coming to staff doing everything they can to refer them to the right places, giving them the proper information. And I know that's what they do on a regular basis, but it just was a really good reminder to me of what great staff we have in the American Fork City. So I just want to express appreciation to them. And that is the mayor's report. We'll now move on to the commons consent agenda. It consists of three things: the approval of the September 4th, 2018 work session minutes, approval of the September 11th, 2018 city council minutes, and approval of the authorization to release the improvement construction guarantee in the amount of $4,310 and issue a notice of acceptance for the North County Professional Plaza construction of public improvements located at 321 North County Boulevard. Any changes on the minutes, Lorley?
There is one minor change that Kevin brought to my attention where I retyped the same thing twice. So I'll just delete that and then they'll be good.
Okay.
With that change, Mayor, I would move approval of the common consent agenda.
Thank you. Got a motion by Councilman Taylor.
second.
Seconded by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on this motion?
Laura Lee, I did see you send those
4
changes.
That was embarrassing.
No, don't worry about that. I honestly just didn't get a chance to look at them. Were you able to make all those changes?
I did. Okay, yes, I did. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
And that was the correction to the motion last meeting, right?
No, nothing like that. No, just,
Okay. So I'm reading it up, okay?
it was our last council meeting, but there was nothing about the motions made, right? There weren't any motion changes. It was mostly, there were some verbiage changes. It was like discussion, we did discuss.
Have a motion and a second. Call for a roll call vote. Councilmember Chris Jansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to our action items. Action item number 1 is ratification of the city payments from September 4th, 2018 to September 18th, 2018, and approval of purchase requests over $25,000. Any questions on city payments for bills?
Mayor, I move to ratify the city payments, and I don't believe there were any purchase requests over $25,000, right? Okay, so I move to ratify the city payments.
Have a motion by Councilmember Carroll. Do you have a second? Second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor? Action item number 2 is review and action on the J.T. and W.C. Thompson additions consisting of 1.048 acres at 300 North and North County Boulevard, including the ordinance of annexation agreement, and placement of the property in the PO/1 professional office zone. Any questions for staff on this item?
Mayor, I'd move to approve the J.T. and W.C. Thompson addition consisting of 1.048 acres at 300 North and North County Boulevard, including the ordinance of annexation agreement, and placement of the property in the PO1 professional office zone.
Thank you for that motion, Councilmember Taylor. I have a second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 3 is a review and action of a reimbursement agreement with American Fork OW LLC. Any questions for our Public Works Director on this?
I was curious.
Reimbursement.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was curious why the storm drain needed to be upgraded so dramatically.
The main reason why it needs to be upgraded is that's a very important part of our master plan, just where it sits in the city. It's down kind of in the lower part of the city, and there's a lot of flow that funnels there. So it's part of a bigger master plan line. And so their immediate needs that they have for drainage don't require anywhere near that size of line. But we want to make sure we get it in to take care of a lot of other things that'll flow in that area.
Okay, so that is larger than on some other streets.
Yeah, oh, yes, substantially.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the reimbursement agreement for American Fork OW LLC.
Thank you. I got a motion by Council Member Carroll. Seconded by Council Member Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Council Member Christiansen?
Aye.
Council Member Shelton?
Aye.
Council Member Barnes?
Aye.
Council Member Carroll?
Aye.
Council Member Taylor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 4 is a review and action on an ordinance approving a zone map amendment for the R1 20,000 residential zone to the I1 industrial zone located at 232 East, 1500 South. Adam would answer any questions if you have any.
I think I got the answer, but I just want to make sure. They had applied for the entire piece of property to be one zone, and it got split into two by the Planning Commission, if I understood it correctly, into two different zoning classifications. And then
Yes.
as I read the minutes, they were okay with that.
Yeah, they were. And so what the Planning Commission looked at is if you look at the properties to the east and west, those are under the PI1, which is the planned industrial, which is just a little lighter intensity of uses. And they felt that along that 1500 South corridor, that was a wise designation, and then keeping the I1 a little further to the south. Mhm.
Just the front of that.
Yeah, so you can see where where that cutoff line is. That was where they had made that recommendation.
Is the petitioner here today?
Yes, he is.
I just wanted to kind of ask you the same thing the planning commission asked, now that you've had a chance to maybe review code or think about it, is it gonna work for your?
I feel like it'll still work for us. We've got the Alpine School District, their bus garage just north of us, and we want to do something similar, just park heavy equipment out front. and we'll buffer 1500 south with that 30-foot planter strip. So our intentions are to put up a wall and do some landscaping before we park anything out there, try and beautify it as we've done the rest of the yard before we do anything. So I think it'll work for what we're after. So. Yeah, we'll keep the dirt pile out back and the manufacturing in the back part.
So just basically the trucks and vehicles in the front.
Yeah, yeah,
Ease of access.
yeah.
It
Yep.
looked really good. I drove by this afternoon. It looks clean to me.
Thank you.
You know,
Appreciate that.
Construction people get a bad rap quite often.
Well, we.
I know you can't believe that. but
I
all the ones I
know,
know.
we planted several trees down there trying to keep all the dust concealed and keep things cleaned up, so I appreciate that.
It's just directly across the street from the bus garage.
Yeah, yep.
Could you state your name, just so we have it on record?
Robert Rogers.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Thank you
okay.
very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Well then, Mayor, I move to adopt the ordinance approving a zone map amendment from the R1 20,000 residential zone to the I1 industrial zone and the PI1 planned industrial zone, located at 232 East, 1500 South, with that split being the split that's on the map.
Thank you for that motion, Councilmember Carroll. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Christiansen.
Good job.
Any discussion on the motion?
I think the only other question I would have is the exact placement of the line, the dividing line, I'm going to call it, between the two. Is that settled exactly where that division will be? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was where the planning commission made that recommendation, so that upper, I guess you could say third or whatnot, or basically half, yeah. Yeah, what they had recommended was where the east-west property line is, just continue that straight across.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote.
Just one little quick question, sorry.
Yeah.
We just dealt with a property not too long ago about a split zone on the same parcel. Is that a concern that we have here, where we're doing exactly what we just undid in other parts of the city?
That was from residential to commercial. This is just from basically one industrial to another. There are other areas where this it happened with an annexation just to the west about 2 years ago. I believe Mike Roderick has that piece now. So.
Good questions. I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Item number 5A is review and action on an ordinance approving a site plan for DBD Business Park located at 72 South, 700 East in the GC2 Planned Community Zone. Any questions for Adam on this? If none, I'd entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd motion to adopt the ordinance approving commercial site plan for BBD Business Park with instructions in the city recorder to withhold publication of the ordinance subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the September 5th, 2018 Planning Commission minutes. Planning Commission meeting.
I have a motion by Councilmember Taylor. Do a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton.
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 5B is review and action on the final plat of Osmond Retail AF Plat A located at 520 South, 500 East. This would be just south of the Desert Industries. Any questions, concerns?
I just had one question, if I might, Mayor. Page 61 of the packet is where I wrote it down from. It's the numbering of the lots, and it's that issue of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, when there's really only 4 lots. The number 2 didn't seem to be in there. And under that paragraph on page 61, the last sentence says the renaming of lot is listed as a condition of approval.
Yes, and
Just
so
want to make sure that all,
Yeah,
it's
and so
nitpicky, but want to make sure it all got done properly.
yeah, there are 2 pages in the packet. It looks like that has been fixed. It is lot 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so that has been addressed. The revised plat that they've given.
I do have another question. This is, it's the Osmond Retail Plaza or whatever plat, but these are residential. Did I catch that? No? Okay.
These are all commercial. So you approved the site plan a few months ago, and so what they've done is they've gone back to the site plan. They wish to condominiumize the plan, or the site plan, and so each building pad is now a lot. And so we've done this in other areas. It's fairly straightforward. But yeah, it's commercial.
And directly behind that is where those
The condos are going up.
3-story,
Mhm.
3 or 4-story
Yeah.
condos are going
Yeah,
up.
those are directly to the east.
And they're right behind it, so
Yeah.
this will be
This will be
between
right
those
on Fifth
condos
East.
and right on Fifth East.
Correct. Mhm.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And do we require them to have any sort of landscaping or anything?
Yeah, that was all approved with the site plan. Mhm. No worries.
Okay.
Mayor, I move approve the final plat of the Osmond Retail AF Plat A located at 520 South, 500 East, and authorize the mayor and the city council to sign the plat and accept the dedications with instructions of the city recorder to withhold recording of the plat, subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the September 5th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting.
Thanks for that motion, Councilmember Taylor. Do we have a second by Councilmember Carroll? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen,
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton,
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes,
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Item number 5C is a review and action on an ordinance adopting the final plat and site plan of Stone Creek Plat B Conservation Subdivision consisting of 76 lots located at 400 South Stores Avenue in the PR3 Planned Residential Zone. Any questions you'd like staff to address outside of the packet unanswered?
I'd like some more information on the conservation issue.
So the conservation subdivision, it's a PUD option that we have that allows smaller lot sizes in exchange for open space. This is a second phase of an overall development that's about, I want to say, let me double check the acreage, 143 acres. And then 37 of those will be open space. And so they're basically, this is phase 2. Phase 1 was approved a couple months ago, I believe, and this is the second phase. And so we're seeing these come in individual phases. The area that will be open space will be adjacent to that park. I believe it's called the Mountain Meadow Park. So that will, earlier they'd been talking with the Parks and Rec director about future plans for that. And so that's kind of moving forward as far as with each individual phase, we're getting more of that open space. So we're building onto that park. Again, this is just the second phase, and it's an option in the PUD provision of the code, and they're utilizing that.
So as I looked at that, there's a requirement of so many acres of open space or something like that.
Yes.
And that's the whole project, the 3 different phases in total.
I believe there will be more than 3
or
phases.
3 or 4,
Mhm.
whatever it is, because this one didn't seem to have the higher percentage of open space.
Yeah, I believe with phase 1, I think we got about 9 acres. This one's a little over an acre, I
But
believe. But
it's
it's
the
all
whole
getting
thing
pieced
in
together,
total.
correct. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's one large project. This is just phase 2.
I'd like to just do a little shout out. As I was reading the minutes from the Planning Commission, on line 33, it says Miss Stanton asked, is that how she says it, Stanton or Staten?
Staten.
Staten, that's what I wondered. Line 33 on the second page, I guess it is, says she asked if no basements will be made clear to home buyers. because I guess that's a real high water table area, so they cannot put basements there, I'm guessing, is the thing. But the point is that the Planning Commission is looking at the fact that that's not a good place to build a basement.
Correct.
A home with a basement, and they're picking up on those kind of things. So it's kind of a shout out to them for really looking into the detail, which means I don't have to look at it quite so much.
As you know, that in the adjacent development, there were no basements to be built, and then they were built anyway. We need to be extra vigilant that this is followed through with.
I believe in that development, they actually brought in just a tremendous amount of fill dirt and raised it up. But
And, the applicant's here. He could speak to that if you'd like him to.
okay.
I don't want to get tased.
Will you?
Yeah,
Will you,
okay. So
please
there's
just-
basements,
can you
the
please state
taser
your
comes
name?
out.
Yeah.
It's Robbie Thompson. Yeah, so there's no this whole area has got high water table, so there'll be no basements. You sometimes can build up the roads and build the foundations out, but then you've got your first floor is like you're walking up 5 stairs. It's like West Farmington, and we don't have any plans to do that. So no basements. It'll be on the plat. So the actual plat will be recorded, and it'll state that there'll be no basements. So shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
You have any other questions or?
Thank
Okay,
you
thank
very
you.
much for being here.
Well, Mayor, are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a
Okay.
motion.
I move to approve the ordinance adopting the final plat and site plan of Stone Creek Plat B Conservation Subdivision consisting of 76 lots located at 400 South Stores Avenue in the PR 3.0 planned residential zone, and to authorize the mayor and city council to sign the plat and accept the dedications with instructions to the city recorder to withhold recording of the plat and publication of the ordinance subject to all findings and conditions identified in the public record associated with the September 5th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting, including a finding that the averaging of lot sizes provides for greater overall consistency.
Thank you for that motion. Councilmember Carroll, do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Shelton. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Item number 6 is a review and action on an ordinance approving amendments to section 15.01.110 of the city code relating to easements. Scott, why don't you just give us a little overview? I think it's pretty straightforward. I like this idea. Appreciate you. This was something that staff picked up on their own and brought it forward.
You bet. Mr. Mayor, what we have before you is an item that would change the requirements for the standard easements that are created on any new lots that are created, new subdivisions, new lot splits. The current code requires that it be a 10-foot easement all the way around the new lot for potential utilities, although we don't normally put utilities in those. It gives the ability to place them if for some reason there's a need. In looking at it and comparing various practices, various locations here where it doesn't make sense to have 10 feet on each side, and particularly in places where higher density is encouraged and setbacks are typically allowed within a 5-foot setback on the sides. It didn't make sense to have a place where you could get within that distance on a setback, but except for this code that read 10 feet. So we reviewed it, looked closely at it. We recommend that it be 5 foot. So on neighboring lots, then it's 10 total. That's 5 from on each property. On the back and on the sides, and still retain 10 foot on the front for a lot of the dry utilities, which is common where they are. And then it also clears up, and it already is in there, that we do have the authority to ask for more in special circumstances. This kind of clears it up and I think makes that a little bit read a little bit easier, so that if for some reason there is a utility, a canal, a ditch, something that we know about that's going to be on the back or the sides, we do have the ability to ask for more. But that the typical standard would be 5.
Just out of curiosity, has this changed recently? I'm just thinking about my own property, and lot was done back in '06, and it's only got 5 feet all the way around it. And so, and the ironic thing is I've got a sewer line that goes to my backyard. And so I'm just wondering if there was a change and there was a reason why we went to 10 versus 5.
It's been 10 for a long time.
So maybe just in practice, we didn't enforce it, and we were doing 5 in practice anyway.
And wanted to, yes.
Okay. And
Yes,
then I'm-
that is correct.
Unofficially, right?
That is correct. We,
Well,
we want to make
glad we're
sure
bringing
that
it up to speed with
practice meets code, and it has not been always.
So the sewer
followed
line goes down
exactly.
my side yard and then angles off in the backyard, and it's a really weird thing that happens. But I'm looking at this and it's saying a 25-foot wide easement is what you would want in a situation like that. Or would you go to a different one? Just says sewer and storm drain lines that are deeper than 5 feet shall be placed a minimum of 25-foot wide easement.
And I'm looking at, I guess with that writing, Councilman Shelton, I think really what I'm looking at is the total. Is that the total, so that may not necessarily always have to be on one property. It depends on where the line is, where it's proposed to be. It depends on a lot of the situation. Ideally, that's how wide it should be. And depending on depth, that may need to be greater if it's a really deep line for some reason.
I just, when I bought my lot, that's something I looked really closely at. 'Cause it's
Sure.
very unique to have something go that size down the side of your yard, and they said a 10-foot easement was sufficient at that point. It was 5 on each side. So just was kind of curious as to see what your opinion was on it.
I think for something normally that deep, that big, I would
Okay.
like a little, typically something a little more. I mean, it is what it is now for your situation, but if that was new, we'd take a closer look at that
And
today.
then anyone that wanted that, for whatever reason, was at 10, to get that back to 5, they'd petition the city and have to come, just like the next item is on the agenda, to get that shrunk, right?
And this a lot of what drove some of these ordinances, and when we bring changes to you, is a specific situation, which is the next item, which is one where it was put in per code, but because of the circumstances, it makes sense that we don't have a problem then vacating it to match what we recommend the new code be.
Scott, I think there's a typo.
Oh.
On the third line, someone got excited with the strike through. Don't we need the words less than to remain?
Of not less than 10 feet.
Easements of
Not
n-
10 feet. Oh, yes. Yes, that is correct, because that would read easements of not 10 feet. Yeah, thank you. So I was just so excited when they did this, but yeah, thank you, Tim, for good catch. Oops.
I kind of wanted to follow up on Councilmember Shelton. So if somebody who currently already has a home, okay, let me back up. I'm thinking of a few months ago, somebody came to us with an easement, I think it was a swimming pool, that they wanted to build anyway, even though they had an easement and we allowed it. If they wanted to come back and ask for a smaller easement, am I not remembering?
No,
that right?
so what happened a couple of months ago was one where the pool was not placed where it was supposed to be, where it was permitted. They placed it like it just lapped barely into the easement, I think less than a foot if I remember right. It was not where it was permitted, and they discovered it, I think we discovered it anyway, and so an encroachment agreement was entered into for that, to correct that, and to allow them to keep the pool there, but still maintain the city rights that if we have to come in, we can.
So I think I understood that. What I'm asking is could they come back then and make their lot then a smaller easement?
Well, that was in a 5-foot easement. It went into the 5-foot easement, and it shouldn't have. So
Potentially somebody else
had Had it been 10, now we're changing the ordinance to 5, could they have come back? Absolutely. Would we, as staff, recommend approval to you? We would.
So this can be applied retroactively if people ask.
Well,
Is that
and
what-
it's not really, I guess, applied retroactively. They can come, they still have to come to you and request a vacation. They have to go through that process. This doesn't just automatically.
Make it automatic.
No, but they can do that. That's correct, because that would be one then that we would recommend it would get a favorable staff recommendation to you that you approve vacation of that easement, which is again, the next item on the agenda that we recommend.
So, are we ready?
I'm ready anytime you guys are. These are great questions, good vetting.
Well, I would make a motion to adopt the ordinance approving amendments to section 15.01.110 relating to easements.
Okay.
With that correction of those
Verbiage.
2 words, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Councilmember Barnes, and I have a second by Councilmember Christiansen. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 7 is a review and action on an ordinance approving a vacation of a portion of public utility easement at 944 East and 956 East, 1000 North.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the ordinance vacating the portion of the easement 944, 956 East, 1000 North.
You have a motion by Councilmember Shelton.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Barnes. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Item number 8 is a review and action on the consideration of accepting of an easement from American Heritage located at 736 North County Boulevard.
Mayor, I'll move to approve the acceptance of the easement at 736 North County Boulevard.
Have a motion by Councilmember Shelton and a second by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call.
One little typo. First paragraph about halfway down, right of way instead of right if way. That might be a little confusing in the future.
Okay, did staff pick that up? Okay. I have a motion and a second. Call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 9 is a review and action on a resolution approving amendments to the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019 city budget. We had a discussion on this at our last work session. Councilmember Barnes, did you miss that last one?
I'm going to have to abstain on this because I couldn't find any minutes for everything because I was not there.
That's right.
I think I was probably watching the sunset on the beach. Trying to find the dolphins and the whales, and there weren't any.
Any additional questions for Kyle?
Mayor, I'll make an approval to approve the a resolution adopting the adjustments for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019 as presented.
Okay. Thank you for that motion, Councilmember Shelton. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Carroll. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
I'm going to abstain, not because I'm opposed, just because I don't have all the information.
Councilmember Carroll? Aye. Councilmember Taylor? Aye. Thank you. Item number 10 is a review and action on a resolution approving the declaration of a 1987 Mack fire truck to be surplus and dispose of. This thing has had
Mayor,
quite a history in our city.
I'm really grateful it said 1987. I was reading that book prior to waiting for you this morning, and it was the George Shelley book that's there about the history, and it said in 1930 we bought a fire truck for, I believe it was just under $3,000 at that point, and believe it or not, it was a Mack truck. And so I had to come back and look and just double check the year to make sure we just still didn't have that thing in service from 1930. So with that, Mayor, I'll move to approve the resolution declaring 1987 Mack truck to be surplus.
I have a motion by Councilmember Shelton and a second by Councilmember Taylor. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Christiansen? Aye. Councilmember Shelton?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnes?
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor? Aye. Item number 11, we have a motion to adjourn. We have a motion by Councilmember Shelton, second by Councilmember Carroll. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed? Thank you.